Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 4/10/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 89. Excuse me. Today I completed the project, so super excited about that. As you see on the screen here is the completed product. We'll go over all the CSS just to highlight a few things. I did end up removing the blue grids that we had hard coded into the CSS, and I created this neat little two-tone yellow and uh, lime green or lime yellow color. That's kind of cool. Actually, I did it unintentionally, but I'm going to keep it. And then I added two stripes, different shades of my theme of blue on the cards, and also added the border shadow box here. And we'll go over all that in CSS. And I add the border shadow box on the other assets as well. So we have projects, just made up projects. So my theme on this for JB Technologies is I took it as more. I changed this bottom down here to be coworker client accounts. So this is more like an employee dashboard, if you will, where the employee of JB Technologies will go to manage your own projects. These are your projects in the center, and then here's company announcements, site maintenance, Q1 financials, upcoming profit sharing bonus, and then down here is coworkers client accounts, as I mentioned. These are just made up projects that other Snip Beverages, Willow Wong Technologies, Will Do Sports Agency. These are client accounts that other coworkers are working on. So you can kind of see what they're working on, and ideally they're obviously not clickable because there's no back end. But in my thoughts, I would think that you could click on these and then go check out the financial stats or project stats of that particular account and who's assigned to it. So pretty cool. So let's hit the editor. So I added a lot more assets to my images folder. A lot more SVGs. Got them out from material design. Oops, sorry. Anyway, got them from material design. I think I was going to show you that. So went back out here, downloaded a bunch more stuff, put them in my images folder of my projects, and they're out there. And those would be things like I glossed over it, but like your favorite button here, your view count here are visible, and then your share button. They don't click anything. I call them buttons, but they're really just SVG icons. Like I said, in the ideal world, if this had a back end on it, you'd click it, and you could it would behave accordingly. But again, we're just doing CSS here, so it's all just visual. And that also included yeah, that's about it. I didn't add any other icons, SVGs, to the main content section. I will say I made several attempts here to try to make this responsive, like we did with the Holy Grail markup. If you remember where, if you resize it, see how the articles shift. We went over this in one of the other videos. I was unable to do that with the admin dashboard. It got overly complicated because I have so many nested loops, and we'll go, or nested, not nested loops, nested grids, excuse me. So it made it difficult to try to get it to. I know what code I need, the auto fit and min max repeat to get it to do flexible resizing, but it's not as easy as I thought it would be, considering I have all these nested grids. So as you can see, it does not shift accordingly. It just it shrinks until it can't shrink anymore, and then just stops. So I wanted to cover that up front. So if you guys have, after we go through my after you watch this video, if you have an idea how to make that respond the way that they're talking about in the requirements, down here, it's more or less a bonus. It just says this project does not have to be responsive, but if you'd like to, you can expand or shrink the project cards section when resizing the browser. So again, it's a bonus, but if any of you can, if you're following along with what I'm doing, if you're able to figure it out, you can let me know in the comments, because that would be appreciated. I basically gave up on that part after several attempts and of trying it different ways. I just wanted to move on from the project. So on the bigger things. So we'll start out here. I'm just gonna go over the main sections here of the content div, or the content HTML. So you have your main content here. I'm gonna highlight all this. Okay. There's a lot. I spent a lot of time on this last 2 days basically, and most of the weekend basically. Lord willing, thankfully it's been super quiet on the on-call front for my job, so I've been able to work on this intentively. So here's main content, here's projects. So we have a nested div, and then projects has a project title, your projects, and then there's cards inside like we just viewed. There's your Red Dog Run golf course. There's a p tag for standing up the server on-prem, so it just talks about what's in the tag. It's just the paragraph. And then inside that's another div called project images, and that is got the star, I, and share that I just went over, and that's replicated several times over, I believe 6 times. It's the same thing, just different text, same exact images, same exact structure. And I did the div like that, broke out for the project images because I created a grid, a small grid for those, to get them to line up horizontally. Very similar as I did for the presents, if you remember that back a couple videos ago. And then we have another div section called announcements, and that is the, again, we'll go over this in the browser, but that's the section over here. So it's a grid within a grid, and it has the title, which is an H1 in its own div, because I mimicked that from how we did the, actually no, I haven't shown you that yet. Anyway, I created my own div just with the H1 so I could basically make it a 0 FR so that it butts up against the top, and we'll go over that. Visually it's easier to describe. And then there's a card class. This one's just a holistic card. I didn't make several different cards. This is just one big card for site maintenance, Q1 financials, and upcoming bonus profit sharing. Those are H2, and then P tags inside each. And the same for trending. We have a class for trending, and that is this down here. It's called trending even though it's not, and I ended up not using it as that, so just go along with me. When you hear trending, I'm talking about the coworker client accounts, the bottom right hand section there. And the trending title is coworkers client accounts, and I didn't change the trending because I was lazy and I already had my CSS all called out, so I didn't want to change it. So and then class card is the is again a holistic card. It's just one card that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 H2s in it, and that's just the titles of these things right here, H2s, so of these different client accounts. So that in a nutshell is the HTML, and the CSS we'll go over in the browser because I find that that's easier to do and makes more sense for the video. So with that said, let's fire up DevTools here. So here's our main content. We're going to open that up, and then first thing we're greeted with is projects, which, as you can see, projects is the first grid inside of main content. So here is the main content grid. If you don't remember, we went over this before, but real quickly, it's just a 2FR and a 1FR with no explicitly defined rows. Turn that off. Turn this one on. So here's the project grid. That's in the red. So it's a template column of 1FR, 1FR. So it's equal to columns, and rows is 0.1 FR. and that's so I could get the project's title, if you will, this section to be tight and small. So I used a 0.1 FR, and I did a 3 repeat 1 FR for the row. So you got 1, 2, and 3 going to the bottom of the page. And gap of 15 pixels, which created 15 pixels of gap in between each card. And inside of projects, we have the project title, grid column 1, 3. So on the project title, that just tells you that we're expanding. We're spanning from column 1, 2 to 3. Excuse me, just spanning the entire. Just explicitly telling it to span both the columns. And then we have cards inside this, so each card is an individual div, and it's its own grid. So if I'll leave that grid on. So if I turn on this grid here, so I got projects and card grid. So the card grid is the green. So you see here, there's a lot going on. So I have background color. Some of this I brought over from the Holy Grail mockup. So the background color, basically the card itself is coming over the basics nuts and bolts of it. I copied over from Holy Grail. So that's where the background color comes from. The color black is the text. The border left width 20 pixels, and border left color is that same blue, that my theme blue. And what this is this is the design here of each card. So it's 20 pixels wide. Text alignment left means everything's going to line up to the left. Height 400 pixels, so we have a explicitly defined height that is 400 pixels high. Padding left is 20 pixels, meaning we're going to have 20 pixels of padding on this side of each card, as you can see here. And we have a border radius of 10 pixels, so that's the edge, smoothing the edge. Border style is groove. You can't really see it with all the grids on. Let me see if I turn the grids off real quick. So the groove is something cool that I found by accident, actually, as I was typing. Groove creates this line. If you see, there's like a faint dark gray, almost like a putrid green color, and that's what that groove does. I didn't set any particular color, it's just what it chose, and that is the border style. And so we'll turn the grid back on, and then the box shadow, if you remember from previous video, I won't go over this, but that's creating the got the grids in the way again. Turn them off. So that's the box shadow here. 10, 5, 5 gray. So that creates basically 10 pixels of width and 5 pixels of width down here, and it's going to be a gray color. Again, I won't spend too much time on the syntax of that, since we've covered it in previous videos. Google it if you need be, but that's on all cards, so you'll see that common theme. And it's a display of grid as well, and it's got a grid template column of 1FR. So this is for the grid inside the card. So we got 1FR for a column and a row of 0.1 FR. Again, just the same theme as here, so I could have Red Dog Run Golf Course hugged up and tight, and I have another explicitly defined full 1FR and another 0.1 FR, and the 0.1 is to hug the icons at the bottom. So drilling inside a card, we have the Red Dog Run, which is just a color black text align left, and we have a paragraph tag that's got nothing associated with it, but it is taking the parent inheritance of the font and the text align left in color black. And then down here we have the images, as I just mentioned a moment ago. It is also a grid, so if I turn that on, you'll see the burnt whatever that is, excuse me, brown, the light brown here. So it's a grid. Columns is 3 repeat 1 FR, as you can see there. Nothing defined for rows, since we want it at the bottom. We don't need rows. And align item center and justify items left, which shoves everything to the left side, and set align item center centers all these horizontally together, so they're not goofed, guaranteeing that they're not, you know, goofed up in at different heights. So that's that. And again, all this is just going to be a repeat. So this card, all these cards here are all going to be repeated what I just went over, so I'm not going to repeat that. Announcements going over here. I'm going to turn off some of these grids because I find that once you turn on so many grids, it disables you from being able to open up more grids. So we have announcements here. This is a grid. So this is a nested grid inside main content grid. This is called announcements, and it's a 1FR, just self-explanatory. And then rows is 0.05 FR. So that's weird. That is a little bit different because I had a, you'll see here, if I have a 0.1, see how it, of course now it's not going to do it. Anyway, I had an extra space in there. Yeah. See how it drops it down? I must have a bug somewhere because 0.1 is what these are set to, so ideally this should be the same, but I either got a bug or a typo somewhere, so what I did was if I just have this to 0.05, it now the card is exact same level with the other cards. So that's what that is, and then 1FR is the declaration for the next row, which is this whole entire card, basically. So it's going to go down here in the bottom, and so that has all that in it, and then it has a gap of 15 pixels, which is right here, and then and then that's the end of that, and then you have a left margin of 15 pixels right here, and a right margin of 15 pixels here, so it didn't bleed off to the edge of the page. So it looked cleaner, it's sexier, and I was able to get the box shadow in there too. So inside of announcements, we have a announcements title that doesn't have anything really applied to it except inheritance from the body, and we have margin bottom 0 pixels on the announcements, which is this up here, just basically zeroing out any margin that's may be present on which H1 does have. H1 tags do have a default. You can see the yellow there at the top of excuse me, some margins already defined, and so I wanted it to go 0 so that it would look good and congruent to the project's label. And then we have the card. This is the card itself again. This is taken on similar properties as the other one. So we have the site maintenance. The card itself is pretty similar to these cards. Actually exact same thing. I just took out the only thing different is I took out the height requirement. So this one is dynamically expanding and contracting. So that's pretty much the gist of that. And the site maintenance H2 inside there is just a color black text line left. Inheriting, it's all inheritance. There's nothing directly applied to that one. So then we also have inheritance on the P tag inside of there, and then I added HR. If you aren't familiar with HR, I actually Googled it. It creates that line. So this is what, if I hover HR, you'll see there. It just creates that. I don't remember what HR stands for, but basically it's a divider. And in the code, you'll see I created it as a display block and a right margin right of 20 pixels so that it would stop, because if I didn't have that, it would bleed off the edge of the card and it didn't look right. And it's a block because I want it to be responsive. And if you remember, in order to get HTML to be responsive, you have to make it a block in this aspect anyway. I probably could have made it extra confusing, made it a grid, but it didn't really seem necessary because it's just a single HR line. So I create a block, see how it expands nicely, and it stays within the card when you expand or contract, so it doesn't move around on you. And so that's that. and then everything else is inherited that we already talked about. Inheritance on the rest of these basically. So I won't go over them. And then down here we have profit. We have trending, as we talked about. Now this is a child. This is a child grid of a nested grid of announcements. It may appear on screen. I kind of skipped over that a little bit. It may appear on screen that announcements is its own grid, but actually, you see how you got the brown there. It's actually inside of the. It doesn't do a really good job, but it's actually inside of announcements. Announcements does go all the way down here, and I did that so that I could. I had to do that because before I was trying to make coworker client accounts as its own grid, but it wasn't putting it there. It was putting it at the bottom of underneath Tasty Beer Group, and so I had to recreate, get a little creative on more nesting. So it's like a third nested grid, if you will. I hope that makes sense. So there's that, and then the internals are pretty much the same. You have trending title as the so you have the grid, and on the grid and the template columns 1FR, and then just like before we have 0.1 FR for the title, and that takes the title, a full 1 FR for the next row, and that's the card itself, gap of 15 pixels as well. And it shares the because it's a child of announcements, it also has the margin requirements on each side of 20 pixels. And that is about it. So I know I went super fast on that. I knew it was going to be a longer video, so I wanted to cover all that. So please watch again if you need further understanding, if I went too fast. And that rounds off the project. So I am done. So next time I'll be adding my solution here. Don't forget to get status. See, we're going to be way behind. Don't forget to push your commits and then or create your commits and push your content to your GitHub account so that you can complete that aspect, and then push it out here to the solutions, complete it, and move on. So I believe next time we will be going 95%, so we'll be 100% complete, and next time we will be going into be going into, sorry about the minute, JavaScript. So more advanced JavaScript. Look forward to that. Sorry for that. Making that you wait through that there. I just want to make sure it was called JavaScript. Yeah, it's advanced JavaScript. So with all that said, please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section how you guys rounded out for your project for this admin dashboard CSS extravaganza. I know I'm ready to move on from that. That was quite beefy. It was good. I knew it was going to be beefy, but ready to move on from that and on to JavaScript again, and look forward to it, and I hope you do as well. And thanks for coming along for the ride today. And with all that said, until next time, see ya.